Okay, hi. So here's a quick introduction to for loops in Python. So the thing is, when you're dealing with for loops, it's honestly way more overcomplicated than it needs to be. It's honestly a really simple concept. You just need to think about it as a dynamic variable, a variable that keeps changing. So let's talk about how we can, for example, use a for loop. So if we have something like an integer that we want to print out, for example, 9, then it's gonna just be 9. It's gonna print out 9 once. However, if we give a value to something like x, for example, we call x 9 and then we want to print out x, again, same thing, it's gonna print out 9. What if the value of x kept changing? That's effectively what a for loop entails. So the syntax you would use is this: for I in, and then you have to use range 9, and then inside of that for loop, you have to indent, and then you can write whatever you want. For example, print I. Remember, if you're going to do something for a numerical number of times, you have to use range. And the reason behind this is that if I just wrote for I in 9, it wouldn't make logical sense. So the way you would use without range would be if you had, for example, an array filled with a bunch of different numbers. Then, if I put for I in x, it will go through every single individual element of that array. However, if you're just dealing with looping for a certain number of times, you would have to use range and then your number. So if I did this, what's going to happen? If I run this code, it's going to print out all of the numbers from 0 until 8. The reason for this is that it starts out at 0 and it ends off at 1 lower than the range value. So effectively what we have over here is a variable that can keep changing. And every time it changes, we don't need to print it out, but we can do a lot of interesting things with it. For example, we can add it to a different string, like hello plus, and then typecast this into this. We could do this. If we did this, it'll print out hello plus whatever number it is. So you know how we can use strings to effectively add on to whatever our iterator is. And for those of you who don't know, I is the name of our iterator. Now, moving on from this, some other things we can do is printing something for a number of times. Effectively, we could do print out this symbol, the star symbol for I number of times. What do you think is gonna happen here? Well, we're effectively going to get a triangle because the first time this loop runs, it'll be 0, right? So there's going to be nothing. The second time it runs, I will be 1, so it'll print out 1 star. The third time it runs, it'll be I is 2, so it'll print out 2 stars, and it effectively keeps going until I is equal to 8. So that's effectively how you can deal with using a loop. Now let's think about how we can manipulate this in an additional way. What if we do print, and then instead of printing out the value of I in regular order, what if we used reversed? Well, I hope this syntax is correct. Now, it prints it out in reverse order from 8 all the way to 0. So instead of going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it goes 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And this is also useful in manipulation. You can do this for, again, if you want to print a different shape or that kind of thing. So you can use loops to effectively add on or modify things in a dynamic manner or to do things for a certain number of times. Now, let's give you the example of, for example, elements in an array. If I have an array called x and inside there's this is whatever interesting looking thing, and I wanted to effectively go through every single element of this, I would use for I in x, and then I would print out I. What's going to happen here? Well, it'll print out every single element inside of x. And that's because you can use for I in to effectively iterate through the values of something as well. If you want, for example, you can do for I in hello world, and then you print. This would give it character by character as HELLOWORLD. This is because, again, just like an array, you can effectively iterate through a string. that's the basics of how you can loop in Python. I hope you understood this, and I will probably come up with more complicated tutorials later on.